Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Translation. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Sutra. Purport. The absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahma or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are four different types of human beings: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are materialistic, whereas the other three are transcendental. The first-class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second-class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the Absolute Person. And the third-class transcendentalists are those who barely realize the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. The Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed the point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and attachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realizations of the absolute truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, i.e. the paths of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the absolute truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge combined with detachment from material association, and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. Devotional service is not therefore meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are three classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees are the neophytes who have no knowledge and are not detached from material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshiping the deity in the temple, are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to the material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second-class devotional position. In the second-class position, the devotees can see four principles in the devotional line, namely the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself to at least to the stage of second-class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. A third-class devotee, therefore, has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavat. The number one Bhagavat is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third-class devotee, therefore, has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be a representative of Shukadeva Goswami like Sutta Goswami and must preach the call to devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing, so one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam are undoubtedly transcendental subjects, but even though they are such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as a serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of its tongue. A sincere devotee therefore must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress, and with hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principle of Shruti, Smriti, Puran, and Pancharatra authorities, the make-show devotional service at once should be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi. Ata pumbir dvija shreshta varnashram vibhagasha swanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. Hare Krishna. I already read that. I already read that one. I already read that. Oh, man. Okay. I went back in time. But it's okay. Because it's ever fresh. Srimad Bhagavatam is ever fresh. You can read this again and again, and you'll have new spiritual realizations. You're associating with Krishna when you're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the cure. Daily reading, hearing, and chanting cures us from our materialistic tendencies. Tasyo putro paha yogi samadrin nivrikalpaka ekanta matir unnidro guru muda uveyate. Translation: His Vyasadev's son was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. Srila Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul, and thus he remained always alert, not to be trapped by the illusory energy. In the Bhagavad Gita, this alertness is very lucidly explained. The liberated soul and the conditioned soul have different engagements. The liberated soul is always engaged in the progressive path of spiritual attainment, which is something like a dream for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul cannot imagine the actual engagements of the liberated soul. While the conditioned soul thus dreams about spiritual engagements, the liberated soul is awake. Similarly, the engagement of the conditioned soul appears to be a dream for the liberated soul. A conditioned soul and a liberated soul may apparently be on the same platform, but actually they are differently engaged, and their attention is always alert, either in sense enjoyment or in self-realization. So liberated soul, a transcendentalist, he's focused on Krishna consciousness, always absorbed in chanting, hearing and chanting about Krishna. The conditioned soul is absorbed in matter, whereas liberated soul is completely indifferent to matter. The indifference is explained as follows. Drisvan nunyantam risham atmajam apyanagnam deyorya paridar na sututasya chitram tadviksha prachati mana jagadush tabasti Sri Pum Vida Natu Satasya Vikta Vishte. While Sri Vyasadeva was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth, although Sri Vyasadeva himself was not naked. But they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them made no distinction between male and female, but the sage made such distinctions. Purport: in the Bhagavad Gita is said that a learned sage looks equally on a learned and gentle Brahmin, a Chandala, dog eater, a cow, or a dog or a cow due to its spiritual vision. Srila Sukadeva Goswami attained that stage. Thus he did not see male or female. He saw all living entities in different dress. The ladies who were bathing could understand the mind of a man simply by studying his demeanor, just as by looking at a child one can understand how innocent he is. Shukadeva Goswami was a young boy, 16 years old, and therefore all parts of his body were developed. He was naked also, and so were the ladies. But because Shukadeva Goswami was transcendental to sex relations, he appeared very innocent. The ladies, by their special qualifications, could sense this at once, and therefore they were not very concerned about him. But when his father passed, the ladies quickly dressed. The ladies were exactly like his children or grandchildren, yet they reacted to the presence of Vyasadeva according to the social custom, because Srila Vyasadeva played the part of a householder. A householder has to distinguish between a male and female, otherwise he cannot be a householder. One should therefore attempt to know the distinction between spirit soul without any attachment for male and female. As long as such distinction is there, one should not try to become a sannyasi like Shukadeva Goswami. At least theoretically, one must be convinced that a living entity is neither male or female. We are spiritual. We are not male or female. We are completely spiritual. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.